Welcome back. Over the next 2 years, baby boomers will pass a reported $1 trillion down to their heirs, who in most cases are their millennial children.
And this intergenerational transfer of wealth is expected to be the largest in Canadian history, and its recipients are being called the Jackpot generation. Here to break it all down for us is financial commentator Pattie Lovett-Reid. Good to see you.
Hi. Great to be here. Hi. I love talking about money.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. We made a career out of it. I think it's worked out. So how did this jackpot generation come to be?
Well, as a boomer, and we have millennial children, we've had many conversations throughout our lives and said, you know, Mom, you had it so much easier than we did. Interest rates were lower, you could buy a house, you could climb the corporate ladder, there was funding from the government, you had health care, and the list went on. And I would push back rather aggressively, and we have 4 children, and say, yeah, but you know, if you work hard, you get a great education, you take things seriously, you save some money, you too can have what your father and I have. And then reality hit. And I know that's not the case. And they got great validation out of it, let me tell you. And so what you saw was those of us who bought homes at a very young age that were very affordable, in many cases hung on to those homes, and they've gone up in multiple dollar amounts. And at some point, this transfer of wealth, which some would say is going to happen, this $1 trillion, I would argue is happening right now. We are seeing the transfer of wealth happen.
All right, well, $1 trillion sounds like a lot of money, so let's talk money. Let's talk numbers, Pattie.
You like money too, though. You and I talk money.
All the time.
All the time.
So what is the average inheritance for these lucky millennials?
The lucky millennials are the ones who have parents who have the home. So let's be very clear, not everyone's going to get it, because there's about a quarter of the population that never were able to get into real estate. But the average amount, and some will be more, some will be less, is about $948,000. So just shy of $1 million. It's a big amount.
Wow.
So what are some of the concerns surrounding this shift of wealth? I mean, I think about there's a tax. First of all.
Okay, so we'll talk about the taxes separate, because I think from a country's perspective, there's this bifurcation going on, those who have and those who have not. I don't think there's anyone who's probably watching right now that hasn't said, how did they get that house next door? They're 30 years younger than we are. And the list goes on. And so you find that there are 1% of the wealthy in Canada control a lot of the wealth. But then there are others that have really struggled to get by. Inflation's high, interest rates are high, and so you definitely have some of the haves and have-nots. And so the socialization is very real.
Yeah, that gap is widening, right?
The gap is widening, especially over, I would say, the last 20 years or so. Yeah.
So then how does this impact this shift and this transfer of wealth? How is that impacting or will impact the economy?
In a big way. So when you think about wealth creation, you often think about earning power, earning potential. You go out and earn it. Now you're going to have an inheritance wealth. Both are going to be equally strong for the economy. But what you're seeing, and why I say it's starting to happen now, and I almost find it sort of distasteful, but giving with a warm hand versus a cold hand, there are many boomers who would like to pass along some money today so they can help their children today, and others who will say, I'm going to wait till down the road. But it is a real challenge. You know that we all know the expression FOMO, but there are many that do feel like they are being left out of this. And there's a discomfort there. And so you can see that this is sort of a great divide.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, which one do you prefer? Do you think it's better to give your children the money before you pass away or wait until afterwards? I know
No, I think that's a great question. And I can tell you in our household, with our 4, a couple of weekends ago, we sold a cottage and we decided to split the proceeds among the children. And not all of it. Let's just be very let's just be very clear on that. But we did, and they were blown away. And so for us, we get great joy out of seeing what they're going to do with it, and in giving it. But there is a condition, and there are no conditions. That's the condition. When you give money, you can't say, if you buy the house around the corner, or if you use it for the child's education, if you put strings attached, you know how they say you can't rule from the grave? You can't rule when you give money. It's got to be gifted with the right intention. And it's hard. It's hard.
I'm glad I flipped that question, but this is a question I was supposed to ask. So what does the government need to do to mitigate the negative impacts on the economy?
Well, you know what? It's a problem because there are 9 million baby boomers that hopefully are going to age and continue to age, but maybe at some point are going to need care. And that's going to cost the government a lot of money. And they don't have that kind of money. So what's been floated out there, I'm sure you've heard it, you know, should we tax principal residence? The gains on a principal residence. In Canada, we don't have an inheritance tax. They do in many other countries around the world. Should that be put into place? The point is, even just basically if you taxed your principal residence, that could bring $20 billion into the government and then gets played out and paid for care down the road. The government could go broke. I mean, we know that they have the ability to print money, so it's probably not going to happen. But the point is, it's an expensive one-time event that's happening.
So let's talk about what this does to housing. We have a housing crisis across this country.
That's interesting.
So bring those two phenomenons together now.
You know, when I think about it, what you're seeing is intergenerational families living in one location. You're seeing vacation compounds. We did that ourselves. We had a home and then we built a bunkie that slept 6. Is that a bunkie? I don't think so. And I didn't want them in my house, so I had them up there. But, you know, so you're seeing a different type of lifestyle. I also would argue, and my mom's still with us, and I'm fortunate with that, and she's 92, but how she treated us is very different than I'm treating our 9 grandchildren, and wanting to be involved in their lives and saying, we'd like to help with their education. We would like to help, I mean, you know, in ways that we can. So there is a different dynamic, I think. It's not right or wrong, but I do see it more and more, particularly as boomers are living healthier, longer, far more productive lives.
Yeah, and Cynthia kind of touched on it, but we didn't dive into it, talking about the tax implications on this.
Yes, you did. I didn't get back to that.
Wealth. So can you talk to us about that?
So you're still not taxed on the principal residence. Capital gains will be taxed to your estate, and there's no estate tax. But it does bring up a really important point that when you see a transfer of wealth like this, it can be very uncomfortable for someone who isn't expecting it. For others that are, doesn't mean they're going to manage it well. And so if we deal with advisors, and I am a financial advisor, but we still have an advisor, and they don't get to know our children, that wealth will walk where it gets more acknowledgement, shall we say, or comfort. So it's a real communication process. I'm in the business, and I don't really like having the conversation all that much myself, but it is necessary.
What a fascinating conversation, and I hope this sparks conversations with people at home. This is going to be really great. Thank you, Pattie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you, come a bit closer. We've got so many more must-see interviews, spicy debates, lifestyle tips, and pop culture moments. So subscribe to our channel by tapping the logo below and don't miss out.